On today's installation video, we'll be showing you how to install a RaceChip on the Mercedes-Benz vans using the 2.0 4-cylinder turbo. Before installing the RaceChip, please wait until your engine is cool enough to work on. Put your parking brake or emergency brake on. If your vehicle is equipped with an alarm system, please disable it. Pop the hood, roll up the windows, close the doors, and press the lock button on your key fob and move that key fob 30 feet away. You're gonna wait about 10 minutes after for all the electricity to clear from underneath the hood. With the engine cool enough to begin working on, we're gonna first move the oil fill cap. Now to move this, there's gonna be a simple push tab on the bottom and we're gonna gently lift up. I'm just gonna set this to the side right here. Next up is to move the fresh air intake. We're gonna push down in the center here where my thumbs are and gently pull back. And then the nozzle is plugged in right here as well. Gently pull up and that will unsnap. And then last thing to do is use a 7mm socket to loosen the hose clamp right here. And then once that's loose, you can gently pull back until that's out of the way. To move the air cleaner to the side, we're gonna lift up on the two front grommets very gently. And now there's two grommets in the back, like a C. We're gonna pull away from that and then gently set the air cleaner to the side. So to access the boost pressure sensor, we'll need to remove this supporting strut here. Simply push down and pull up on that and then twist the tab 90 degrees until it unhooks. Now we're going to connect the A connection to the boost pressure sensor. So I'm going to reach in here and unplug the OEM sensor plug. To remove the OEM sensor plug on the boost pressure sensor, we're going to gently pull back on the white locking tab until it clicks. Then press down to remove the sensor plug. Then we're going to take the RaceChip female end of the supplied wiring harness and plug it directly into the sensor plug that we just unplugged. Then we're going to lock it in place with the white locking tab. Next up, we take the male end of the RaceChip supplied wiring harness and plug it directly into the OEM sensor and lock it in place with the gray locking tab. After the A connection has been securely made, we can go ahead and replace the plastic brace. To undo the ECU from its mounts, we're simply going to pull on either side of these locking tabs. We're just going to pull back and gently lift up on the ECU. And there'll be two finger-like pins in the top, so we're going to pull back to remove those. So lift up and then gently pull back, slowly working it to get that out. With the ECU moved to the side, we're now going to pull up on the ECU mount to get to the manifold pressure sensor. Next up is the B connection going to the manifold absolute pressure. So on this one, it is below the ECU. You'll see there's two sensors in here. It's one further back on the fourth bank of the manifold. I'm going to pull back on the locking tab until it's unloosened, and you can see the 3-pin sensor right there. Then we'll take the RaceChip supplied wiring harness. We'll take the female end of our harness, the RaceChip harness, and plug it directly into the OEM sensor plug we just unplugged. I'm going to press it until it clicks and then lock it in place with the white locking tab. Then we'll take the male end of the supplied RaceChip wiring harness and plug it directly into the OEM sensor, again, underneath the ECU mount. Now to get to the C connection, we're going to simply remove the engine cover here. You're going to be very careful. Gently lift up. And you'll see the connection is right here. To remove the sensor plug, we're first going to pull back and then press down the white locking tab. Then we'll take the RaceChip supplied wiring harness, take the male end of the RaceChip harness, plug it directly into the sensor, lock it in place. Then we'll take the female end of the RaceChip harness and plug it directly into the OEM sensor plug and lock it in place. Before we install the RaceChip, we're first going to place the 4 mounting tabs in place. Nice thing about our mounting tabs is it allows you to mount the supplied zip ties either vertically or horizontally, and if you ever need to remove the RaceChip for any service or warranty work, you actually don't have to cut the zip ties. Instead, you can press on the locking tabs in the four corners and remove the mounting tab instead of having to cut the zip tie. Next on the installation is to remove the deactivation plug. To do so, we're going to take the FCI plug, pull it to the side until the deactivation plug comes out. Now you're going to want to hang on to this. If you ever need to revert the car back to stock, or when you take it in for service or warranty work, you can remove the race chip and place the deactivation plug in its place. We suggest putting this in your glove box or your center console. So with the deactivation plug removed, we then can insert the race chip. Now if you have the GTS, it's really important we have no LED screen lit up, or if you have the RS or S, there's no green LED that illuminates the first time we install the product. It's really important we have no power to the engine bay when we install the race chip. Now to mount the race chip, we want to mount it someplace away from the hot and moving parts. And you're going to use the two longer of the supplied zip ties to do so. Now if you're going to zip tie any fluid or electrical lines, it's really important you don't zip tie too tight. We don't want to pinch off any of the lines or the fluid going through those lines. So for this application, we're going to mount it right here to the ABS brake lines. Again, it's away from the hot and moving parts as well as any moisture. Generally, anywhere behind a headlight or near the battery is a good idea too, because same thing, those will want to be away from the moisture. And we're going to tighten up the zip ties here. Again, not too tight to pinch off any of the fluid lines. Next is to route the race chip wiring harness. Again, just like the race chip, we want to stay away from any of the hot or moving parts. And if you are going to zip tie onto the fluid or electrical lines, we don't want to go too tight. Now before we reinstall everything, the last thing to do for the race chip is to simply cut the excess ends off the zip ties to give everything a nice OEM look. With the race chip securely mounted and installed, the last thing to do here is to mount the air cleaner back in place. We'll start with the two C-clamps in the back and push in the rubber grommets. Take the oil fill cap right here and simply slide it right into place until it locks, like that. We'll put the hose clamp and air intake right back on, and the snorkel goes back in as well. What to do is to grab the 7mm socket again and tighten the hose clamp. Start in the default setting of the race chip for the first time you test drive the car. If everything works great, you can then move the race chip to the next level up. Be aware that the car needs some time to adapt before releasing the full performance upgrade. Now, get out, drive, and enjoy your race chip.